In the aftermath of the super middleweight showdown between David Benavidez and Demetrius Andrade, the fallout for Andrade has been quite tough. He took a beating from David Benavidez, and it's a shame that it had to come out that way for him, because Andrade had always wanted to prove himself against better quality opposition before meeting up with David, but it just wasn't to be. And the misfortune in that is, at 35, he's on the downside of a career, not just because he lost this fight to David Benavidez, but because time has caught up with him and the abilities that were so once looked at as potential. Let's hear about this article from Boxing Scene about Demetrius Andrade, and it wasn't supposed to be that way for him. According to an article written by Hans Themistold in Boxing Scene, it wasn't supposed to be this way for Demetrius Andrade. This article was published a little bit earlier this morning, November 30th, 2023, and the link for the article will be in the description. Sometimes it's difficult to pinpoint who's the best fighter in the world. Boxing politics and fickle fans sprinkle their own narrative into things. There's no reason why one fighter associated with one promoter can't fight another fighter associated with someone else. But that's just the way boxing works. We don't get the matchups that we want at times. When we do, you can smell the expiration date a mile away. I agree with that opening for that article, because when we think back upon what we saw on Saturday, November 25th, with David Benavidez and Demetrius Andrade, you could just kind of see that the timing wasn't there for the man that it should have been there for. But as the article goes on, it's a shame that we never got to see the violent offense of Paul Williams versus the make you miss and make you pay defense of Floyd Mayweather. How about the bemusing situation between Sergey Kovalev and Adonis Stevenson? The two could have got it on years ago for all of the light heavyweight marbles. Don't even get me started on the heavyweight showdown between Riddick Bowe and Lennox Lewis that didn't happen. Boxing's history books are littered with matches that never took place. Just thinking about it makes fans, no matter how much time has passed, slam their fist on the nearest table they can find. Still, even with the holes in their respective resumes, each of those fighters and countless others racked up enough notable wins for their supporters to look past who they didn't fight. And that seems to be something that continues forward in boxing today, people. We see it over and again, and we just can't seem to get what we want out of this sport that we profess to love. Being optimistic in the sport of boxing is almost idiotic. Pugilism can be cruel, corrupt, and unforgiving, but Demetrius Andrade remained sanguine. He was always bombastic in his approach, confident and maybe a bit awkward, definitely silly, but incredibly talented. Unlike in the pros, where it's easy to bloviate nonstop about your skills and claim you're the best without actually proving it, in the amateurs, it's all about showing what you got. There's no picking and choosing in the unpaid ranks. Those long and drawn out contract negotiations simply don't exist. You merely lace up your gloves, you jump into the ring and fight whoever they put in front of you. Isn't that the truth? And too bad our beloved sport of boxing doesn't operate that way. We're given far too much to look at that is business that takes away from the sport. All in all, Andrade fought and beat all sort of fighters that will make you scratch your head. He beat Keith Thurman on 3 separate occasions, took out Austin Trout, got the best of Daniel Jacobs, got rid of Charles Hatley not once, not twice, but 3 times. He also split a pair of fights with Shawn Porter and came up just short against Erislandy Lara. With the exception of Hatley, all those previously named fighters went on to become champions, for some in multiple weight classes. You see, that's where you talk about the decoration of the talent that Demetrius brought to the ring and the hope that he brought on the night that he faced David Benavidez. To continue, they were all great, but when Andrade's name came about in conversations, their eyes began to water as the profuse praise was endless. Andrade was good, the world could see it, but his contemporaries swore he was great. That, however, could only be proven by his level of opposition. To a large extent, Andrade's career was a confusing one. Yeah, he won titles in 2 weight classes, but few were impressed by the opponents he went on to face. Walter Katundoaka, the man he defeated for the vacant WBO middleweight title, fought just twice after Andrade, going 1-1 before hanging up the gloves. Vanes Martirosyan had a shiny, undefeated record by the time they got it on for the vacant junior middleweight crown in 2013, but his career fell by the wayside after he came up short, going just 3-3 before retiring. Up until recently, Andrade had never fought a current or former world champion. And see, that's the thing. For Andrade, who really wanted to prove himself and test his wares against the people that are out there, he wasn't able to do so because the doors were closed in his face. The story behind his career is somewhat sad. For years, he was known as the Boogeyman, an uber-talented fighter that presented the sort of issues that are seldom solved. On paper, it seems as though Canelo Alvarez avoided him on numerous occasions. In 2019, it appeared blatant. The Mexican star took out Gennady Golovkin in the year prior, then grabbed the IBF middleweight belt from Daniel Jacobs the following year. Alvarez puffed out his chest and declared that his main goal was to become undisputed champion. Andrade, with his WBO wrapped around his waist, was the happiest man alive. Not only would he make a career-high payday, but he was ostensibly on the verge of proving that he was a great fighter. Ultimately, the joke was on him. Alvarez moved up to the light heavyweight division before settling in at 168 pounds. Jamal Charlo was once reportedly offered a $7 million payday from Eddie Hearn, but nothing moved the needle. Billy Joe Saunders gave Andrade the opportunity he was looking for, but got busted for using a nasal spray that was subsequently removed from their 2018 showdown. Yeah, see, this is what happens when the fighters don't face one another in that due time that we always look at like a stopwatch. The article goes on that in 2014, Andrade was at the very last minute pulled out of a 154-pound scheduled title defense against Jermell Charlo, claiming that there weren't enough zeros attached to the end of his paycheck. Erislandy Lara once argued that Andrade, back in 2017, priced himself out in fight negotiations. He didn't always show discernment, but regardless of how it happened, Andrade remained out of the big fight picture. With little to no options, the former Olympian poked his head through the super middleweight curtains and liked what he saw. As a free agent, he could sign with practically anyone. Matchroom didn't get him the fights that he wanted, despite spending numerous years there, and Golden Boy Promotions had nothing to offer. Premier Boxing Champions, however, had all the big names: Charlo, Alvarez, Morrell, Durrell, Plant. They had it all. Andrade grabbed the nearest pen he could find and signed his name on the dotted line. After taking out Demond Nicholson in a welcome to the division sort of fight earlier this year, David Benavidez was up next. Man, this is kind of sad how this particular author is going about Andrade's career. And for those who have followed him closely, you can feel it. It was the fight that everyone was waiting for, an elite opponent, a dangerous opponent, and more importantly, a respected one. Andrade couldn't believe it. An invite to the big fight party, he happily accepted. During his preparation, he was motivated. He was tired of outsiders feeling ambivalent about his career and finally had a chance with a dance partner he could prove his greatness. While he sauntered to the ring this past Saturday, he was calm, cool, chill, relaxed, and couldn't stop himself from smiling. But roughly 11 minutes later, he couldn't believe what was happening. Andrade was down on his knees, collecting himself, following a violent right hand from Benavidez. Yeah. 2 rounds later, most of which he spent backpedaling and having his head snapped back, Andrade found himself sitting on his stool, bleeding from parts of his body he didn't know existed. By the time the bell rang, signaling the start of the 7th, he remained on his stool, unable to push himself out there for another beating. It was official. For the first time in his career, he came out on the wrong end of a fight. Losing isn't a big deal. Don't let the spotless careers of Floyd Mayweather and Andre Ward fool you. Perfection is an illusion, a mirage, often a figment of your imagination. Andrade never expected to finish his career without tasting defeat, but the timing of his first loss is horrific. It was the first time boxing spotlight was shining on him. His supporters who screamed to the mountaintops that he was a great fighter, deprived of opportunity, were shell-shocked. It isn't that Andrade was an overappreciated hype job, but while he was smack dab in the middle of his prime, he never got the chance to prove himself. Now at the age of 35, his reflexes are a bit slower, his punch resistance slightly diminished, and the grays on his chin are more noticeable. He'll likely continue his career, but the sand in his hourglass is nearly depleted. Andrade's career was never supposed to be this way. He was a Hall of Fame talent with the skills to compete with anyone in his generation. He'll probably grab a few more wins before he hangs them up, but a few losses are likely as well. Yeah, that's the thing. But I'll tell you, even in losing to Benavidez, he lost to a class fighter who is on the move and on the come up. So, with all of that being said, his career is still memorable. Becoming a 3-time 2-division champion isn't easy, but once he eventually rides off into the sunset, we'll sit back and wonder just how great he could have or should have been. A wonderful dedication article for Demetrius Andrade, who gave what he could against a fierce young fighter who is going by the nickname the Mexican Monster. This is Stormy B-Man. Shout out to the mighty LDBC and Liberated Perspective, a third eye view of the world. For more content such as this, please like, comment, subscribe, and share. Peace to everyone out there, and everyone please remain safe.